Imagine you're living 50,000 years ago. You wake up with a pounding headache, your tooth is throbbing with pain, and there's a deep gash on your arm from yesterday's hunt. No aspirin, no antibiotics, no hospitals. Just you, your tribe, and the raw power of survival instinct. Yet somehow, our ancestors not only survived these brutal conditions, they thrived for hundreds of thousands of years without a single pill or surgery. What they knew about healing could save your life today. And what they endured would absolutely shock you. Picture this. You're a hunter 40,000 years ago, and you've just taken down a massive woolly mammoth. Victory, right? Wrong. As you're celebrating with your tribe, the dying beast's final thrash sends a tusk straight through your thigh, shattering bone and tearing muscle. Blood is everywhere. Your leg is hanging at an impossible angle. And here's the kicker. There's no ambulance coming. No surgeon waiting. No morphine to dull the agony. This wasn't some rare accident. This was Tuesday for our ancestors. Every single day was a death trap wrapped in survival challenges that would make modern, extreme sports look like a children's playground. We're talking about an era where a simple cut could mean certain death, where childbirth killed 1 in 4 women, and where the average lifespan was a brutal 25 to 30 years, if you were lucky. But here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. Despite facing injuries that would send us screaming to the emergency room, these ancient humans somehow found ways to not just survive, but to heal and fight another day. They were performing crude surgeries with stone tools, setting broken bones with nothing but intuition, and treating infections with remedies that actually worked. The question isn't how they survived without medicine, it's how the hell they figured out what worked when one wrong move meant death. Let's get real about what ancient humans were actually dealing with. Forget stubbing your toe or getting a paper cut. These people were facing down saber-toothed tigers, cave bears, and predators that could crush skulls with their bare teeth. Archaeological evidence shows us bone after bone riddled with bite marks, claw wounds, and fractures that would make you sick to your stomach. Take the Shanidar cave discoveries in Iraq, where researchers found Neanderthal remains that tell a story of pure survival horror. One skeleton showed a man who had survived a crushed skull, a withered arm, and was blind in one eye. Another had ribs that were clearly broken and healed multiple times. These weren't warriors who got lucky once. These were people who were getting absolutely destroyed by life and somehow kept going. But the real nightmare was infection. Imagine every tiny scratch becoming a potential death sentence. No antiseptic, no antibiotics, no understanding of germs. Just the constant threat of your body turning against you. Gangrene would set in from the smallest wounds. Tooth infections would spread to the brain. And yet, somehow enough people survived these conditions to keep our species going. The archaeological record is littered with evidence of amputations, trepanations, drilling holes in skulls, and bone setting that required incredible knowledge of human anatomy. These weren't accidental discoveries. They were hard-won lessons paid for with countless lives. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Ancient humans had a completely different relationship with death than we do. It wasn't some distant possibility. It was literally sitting at their dinner table every single night. Children died so frequently that many cultures didn't even name babies until they survived their first year. Adults expected to lose teeth, limbs, and loved ones with a regularity that would drive us insane. Archaeological evidence from sites like Atapuerca in Spain shows us just how brutal this reality was. Skeletons reveal multiple healed fractures, evidence of repeated injuries, and signs of malnutrition that would horrify modern doctors. These people were living in a constant state of physical trauma that makes our worst nightmares look like minor inconveniences. But here's the incredible part. They adapted. Not just physically, but mentally and socially. They developed pain tolerance levels that would seem superhuman to us. They created support systems where the tribe would literally carry wounded members for months during healing. They learned to read their bodies in ways we've completely forgotten. The most shocking discovery? Many of these ancient humans were actually healing from injuries that would require major surgery today. Broken bones were setting properly, deep wounds were healing without infection, and people were recovering from head traumas that should have been fatal. They weren't just surviving, they were developing medical knowledge through pure trial and error, with death as their teacher and life as their only reward. So how did our ancestors turn the wilderness into a life-saving pharmacy? The answer is both brilliant and terrifying. They experimented on themselves. Imagine being so desperate to heal your dying child that you're willing to try chewing on random bark, crushing mysterious berries, or brewing teas from plants that might kill you. That's exactly what ancient humans did, and through generations of trial and error, with countless deaths along the way, they discovered remedies that actually worked. Archaeological evidence from sites like Shanadar Cave reveals something incredible. 60,000 years ago, Neanderthals were already using medicinal plants. Pollen analysis shows they were consuming yarrow, which reduces inflammation, and chamomile, which fights infection. But here's the kicker. These plants taste absolutely awful and have no nutritional value. The only reason to eat them? They knew they worked as medicine. The most mind-blowing discovery happened when researchers found C. the Iceman, that 5,300-year-old mummy preserved in the Alps. His stomach contained birch fungus, which we now know has powerful antibiotic properties. He wasn't snacking on this stuff, he was medicating himself. This frozen time capsule proved that ancient humans had developed sophisticated medical knowledge that we're still catching up to today. But the real shocker: many of these ancient remedies are more effective than modern alternatives. Willow bark contains salicin, the original aspirin. Honey has antibacterial properties that outperform some modern antiseptics. Turmeric reduces inflammation better than many prescription drugs. Our ancestors weren't just making lucky guesses, they were conducting medical research with their lives on the line. Now here's where things get absolutely insane. Ancient humans were performing surgery with stone tools, and somehow, people were surviving it. We're talking about trepanation, literally drilling holes in skulls to relieve pressure, being performed 10,000 years ago, with success rates that would make modern doctors sweat. Archaeological evidence from sites across the globe shows skulls with perfectly healed holes, meaning patients survived not just the surgery, but lived for years afterward. How is this possible? These ancient surgeons had developed techniques for sterilization using fire, plant-based antiseptics, and timing that prevented infection. They understood anatomy through hands-on experience that no textbook could teach. The most shocking discovery comes from ancient Peruvian sites, where researchers found evidence of skull surgery with survival rates approaching 90%. These weren't desperate last-resort procedures. They were refined medical techniques passed down through generations. Using obsidian blades sharper than modern scalpels, ancient surgeons were removing bone fragments, treating head injuries, and even performing cosmetic procedures. But the real mindbender? They were doing this without anesthesia. Patients were staying conscious through procedures that would require general anesthesia today. How? They used natural painkillers like coca leaves, opium poppies, and alcohol-based numbing agents. They also developed psychological techniques for pain management that involved the entire community supporting the patient through healing rituals. Here's what'll absolutely blow your mind. Ancient humans had identified and cataloged thousands of medicinal plants with accuracy that rivals modern pharmaceutical research. They knew which plants could stop bleeding, which could fight infection, which could ease pain, and which could literally bring people back from the brink of death. Take the discovery of echinacea among Native American tribes. who used it to treat everything from snake bites to serious infections. Modern research has confirmed its immune-boosting properties. Or consider the use of foxglove by ancient Europeans for heart conditions. It contains digitalis, still used in cardiac medications today. These weren't random folk remedies. They were precise medical applications developed through generations of observation and experimentation. The most incredible example? Ancient Egyptian papyri describe over 700 medicinal formulas using plants that modern science has proven effective. They were using garlic as an antibiotic, aloe for wound healing, and willow bark for pain relief thousands of years before we understood why these treatments worked. Their success rate was so high that many of their remedies are still used in modern medicine today. But here's the terrifying part. This knowledge came at an unimaginable cost. For every plant that saved lives, dozens of people died discovering which ones were poisonous. For every successful treatment, countless experiments failed catastrophically. Ancient humans were literally sacrificing themselves to build a medical knowledge base that would save future generations. Their pharmacy wasn't just nature, it was paid for with human lives, creating a database of healing that took millennia to compile. Here's something that'll completely shatter your understanding of ancient medicine. Our ancestors discovered that the mind could literally heal the body in ways that modern science is only beginning to understand. While we've been focusing on pills and procedures, ancient humans were mastering the art of psychological healing that could make the difference between life and death. Picture this. A wounded hunter is brought back to the tribe with a spear wound that's clearly infected. Today, we'd pump him full of antibiotics and hope for the best. But 30,000 years ago, something incredible happened. The entire tribe would gather around this dying man, chanting, dancing, and performing rituals that lasted for days. And here's the kicker, it actually worked. Not always, but enough times that these practices became central to ancient healing. Modern neuroscience has finally caught up to what our ancestors knew instinctively. The placebo effect is real, and it's incredibly powerful. When ancient shamans performed healing rituals, they weren't just putting on a show, they were triggering actual biochemical changes in the patient's body. The belief that healing was happening caused the brain to release endorphins, boost immune function, and even accelerate tissue repair. But here's what's absolutely mind-blowing. Archaeological evidence shows that ancient humans were achieving healing outcomes that should have been impossible. Bones that were shattered beyond repair were healing perfectly. Infections that should have been fatal were clearing up. The secret wasn't just in the plants they used, it was in the psychological framework they created around healing. Now here's where ancient healing gets really incredible. They understood that isolation kills and community heals. While modern medicine treats patients as individuals, ancient humans knew that healing was a collective responsibility. When someone was injured or sick, the entire tribe became part of the treatment. Archaeological evidence from sites like Kafeza Cave in Israel shows something remarkable. Disabled individuals who should have died were being cared for by their communities for decades. We're talking about people with severe injuries, birth defects, and chronic illnesses who lived full lives because their tribes refused to abandon them. This wasn't just compassion, it was medical strategy. The psychological impact of this community support was profound. Ancient humans never faced illness alone. They had constant physical contact, emotional support, and the reassurance that they were valued members of the group. Modern research has shown that social isolation can literally kill you by suppressing immune function and increasing inflammation. Our ancestors intuitively understood this connection. But the most shocking discovery? These community healing practices were actually changing brain chemistry. When tribes gathered to support a sick member, they were creating powerful neurochemical cocktails of oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin that promoted healing. The ritual singing, dancing, and physical contact weren't just ceremonies. They were sophisticated medical interventions that targeted the nervous system. Here's the final piece of the puzzle that explains how ancient humans survived without modern medicine. They developed spiritual practices that literally rewired their brains for healing. This wasn't just religious ceremony, it was advanced neuroscience disguised as shamanism. Ancient healing rituals involved altered states of consciousness, achieved through drumming, chanting, plant medicines, and sensory deprivation. Modern brain imaging shows that these practices activate the same neural pathways targeted by modern antidepressants and pain medications. Our ancestors were essentially performing brain surgery using rhythm, sound, and ceremony. The most incredible example comes from Australian Aboriginal healing traditions that are over 50,000 years old. Their Dreamtime healing ceremonies involve specific sound frequencies, visualization techniques, and group participation that create measurable changes in brain activity. Patients entering these healing states show increased production of natural painkillers, improved immune function, and accelerated wound healing. But here's what's absolutely astounding. Many of these ancient healing practices were more effective than modern treatments for certain conditions. Chronic pain, depression, trauma, and autoimmune disorders often responded better to ritualistic healing than to pharmaceutical intervention. Why? Because ancient humans understood that healing isn't just about fixing the body, it's about healing the entire person within their community and spiritual context. The final shocking truth? We've actually lost critical healing knowledge that our ancestors possessed. In our rush to modernize medicine, we've forgotten that the human body is designed to heal itself when given the right psychological, social, and spiritual environment. Ancient humans created healing systems that worked with human nature instead of against it, achieving medical outcomes that we're still struggling to replicate with all our advanced technology. The truth is both humbling and inspiring. Our ancestors survived and thrived for hundreds of thousands of years, using healing methods that combined practical plant medicine, surgical techniques, and psychological interventions that we're only beginning to understand. They turned nature into their pharmacy, their communities into their hospitals, and their beliefs into their medicine. While we can't go back to living like our ancestors, we can learn from their holistic approach to healing. Maybe it's time to remember that healing isn't just about pills and procedures. It's about connection, community, and the incredible power of the human spirit to overcome seemingly impossible odds. What ancient healing wisdom resonates most with you? Have you ever experienced the healing power of community support or natural remedies? Drop a comment below and let's explore together how we might integrate some of these time-tested approaches into our modern lives. And if this journey into our ancestors' incredible survival story fascinated you, hit that subscribe button, because there's so much more shocking ancient wisdom waiting to be discovered.